So hi everyone, I'm glad to see some people joining. I know this was very last minute. I'm just fiddling about with my camera. Yeah, I haven't done a live tutorial or like a workshop in quite a long time. So I just thought that we could just kick it off with one that was completely, I know nobody had any notice, but this is something that I've been asked to do quite a lot. So when we're talking about digital drawing, I draw all of my books, all of my artwork digitally. Now I can draw traditionally, that is something that I also do, but when it comes to actually putting the line work down for publishing, it's so much better doing it digitally because it's so clean. I also have a big problem with the fact that I like my lines to be perfect, and when using fine liners, as everybody would, my hand still shakes and it drives me absolutely mad. So using it or creating it digitally using an iPad, it just means that all of my lines are perfect, and if they're not, I can literally erase them 20, 30, 40 times. So every time I have to until I get that line perfect. So this is my iPad now. I've got my phone looking down onto my iPad. This is an iPad Pro. This is actually my baby. I love this. This is a new one. So I had the iPad Pro first generation until a couple of weeks ago. It was a smaller, I think it was like 9 inches, 10 inches. Well, this one is obviously a lot bigger. This is the new iPad Pro. I think this is the 3rd gen. It's the biggest screen that they had, and that's why I like it, because I like working on bigger screens. What I do when I'm drawing, obviously the tablet can lay perfectly flat, but I personally lift it up. This is an iPad case that I bought from Amazon, and it just means that I can actually lift it up so that my hand is at a better angle for drawing, and I can even lean on my screen. Some of the older versions of digital drawing pads, you couldn't lean on the screen. So every time you put your hand down, it would mess up with your pen, and then you'd end up like rubbing things out, and that doesn't happen anymore. The technology is much better. So I always lift it up so my hand's got something to lean on so that I can get all my lines and everything as clean as I want them to be. So because this is my new iPad, I don't really have a lot on here. There's some stuff from my new book that was just out. So there's some of the sketches and some of the drawings that were in, and my cover artwork. I've been playing around with a couple of things over here. This is the picture that I did the other day. This line art is from Steampunk Darlings, but instead of just colouring it in as normal, I decided to do it purely in different shades of green, which is quite easy when you're doing things digitally, because obviously you've got a massive array of greens. Once you're limited to pencils or paints or alcohol markers, you've only really got the shades they provide. But at the same time, I absolutely love colouring with markers and pencils, because you can just layer them and create as many shades as you want to. Alcohol markers are perfect for creating new shades. So I do that all the time anyway. But for me, I love both. I love traditional and I love digital. I can never choose between which ones I like. But when it comes to my line work and when it comes to drawing, I definitely always come back to my iPad. Even if I've started off and the sketch... do I have any sketches? Sometimes my sketches that I've drawn on a piece of paper I'll photograph and then move it over into PROCREATE so that I can see where the idea came from and what it was. Now, I don't want to give away too many things, but this one started as a sketch. So obviously I'm nowhere near finishing this one at all. But you can see there's all sorts of sketch lines that was going on underneath here, because I come here and I don't always have an idea. I don't always know what it is that I'm going to be doing. There you go. So you can see some sketch lines in the background. There's all sorts of things going on there. So that would have been what I would have started with, although I know there's a couple more. There's some layers in there. On a normal piece of paper with a pencil. So sometimes I can draw quite far into the process traditionally, just using paper and pencil, and then other times I'll sketch just some ideas and then move it directly over, and then I can start working from that point. So she will be in my new book, which will be out I'm thinking September, so later on in the year. Yeah, there's nothing in there really that you shouldn't see. What you can see is, I think I've shared this online, is the new book will involve the Zodiac Darling. So I have all of those ready to go into the new book. And what I'm doing is creating a colouring book that will be consisted of all the Zodiacs, the different seasons. So this is autumn, then obviously spring, summer, and winter. And then I'll be doing things such as the night goddess, the day goddess, and just kind of bring in lots of seasons and the zodiacs and bring them all together to create a book that would actually be colourful all year round. I'm considering, now this isn't a promise because I don't know if I can do this, it's going to take a lot of planning, and I'm awful at that. I just tend to do things. I'm considering maybe making it into some sort of a calendar. If not a calendar, maybe a journal. I'm not sure. It might not happen, but obviously as the year goes on, I'll let you know how that one's going. So that was the autumn one that I did, and that was coloured entirely on Procreate. So when it comes to working on a digital platform like this, there's so many more things you need to consider. I know some people tend to get a little bit upset at the idea that digital colouring is a cheater's way of colouring, or it's easy. Well, I actually don't agree with that whatsoever. It's not easier, it's different. It's completely different. If you did have a digital artist that had never touched a pencil, which is highly unlikely, but if you did have one that hadn't actually ever coloured traditionally, they would think that what most people are doing, like a lot of colourists are doing with markers and pencils, were impossible. They would really, really struggle to come from this into what most people are doing. So it's understandable that when you are working traditionally with markers or pencils or paints, moving over to digital feels completely impossible because they're just so different. There is no way that you could possibly just pick one thing up and be perfect at it. Everything is going to require so much practice and learning. Everybody has to learn. So whether you are already digitally drawing now, or you want to get better, or you literally just want to find out whether it's something that you want to do, just remember that neither one of them is easier than the other. They are just completely and utterly different. So for example, this is a finished piece. Normally I clear my layers up, and I actually haven't, so that would work quite well. So all these things down this side here, they're all different layers of the painting. And what I mean by that is this. So if I just start removing things, as I'm moving down my layers here, I am, is that on or off? Off. Removing layers of my picture. So I'll just remove some of the light. I've removed a little bit more, and then we come down. There's my line art. So I'm going to keep that on there. That's line art. If I keep going down, I'll make this a little bit smaller so you can see. There's the leaves gone. That is a glow layer, is what I call it. It's not actually what it is, it's just I call things random names. There's the hair gone, and this is what is meant when people talk about layers when working digitally. So all it means is that as you go along and you're creating a piece of artwork, you are working in layers. Now, the reason why we work in layers is because if you go completely wrong on, say you've nearly done everything and then you go completely wrong at the end, in order to get rid of that, you really need to isolate the area in which you've gone wrong rather than having to delete the whole thing and start all over again. So I use absolutely loads of layers to make sure that I don't go wrong. Or if I do go wrong, I can isolate the problem and remove it without it affecting anything else. If I've spent 2 hours literally doing the skin tone, which looks different on that layer because I have 3 or 4 different layers above that affects the colours, and I realise that I've gone and done that wrong, that means 3 or 4 layers will all have to be binned. Whereas, sorry, if it was all on the one layer, it would all have to be binned. Whereas if I have 3 or 4 layers, I know I can isolate the layer that it went wrong on and then get rid of it. So for example, when I started this painting, I actually hadn't even decided whether it was going to be part of the book, nothing. I just came up with this concept and I was drawing it and I was just in it. I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing. I think I was probably watching a movie or something. That's usually what I'm doing. Well, originally it had a completely blue background. So where is that? Oh, we'll get rid of that orange. So as you can see there, I made this blue night sky, which I loved. I really did like that. But then I thought to myself, it doesn't look winter. The colours are winterish, but it doesn't look like winter. It looks more like autumn. So instead of me erasing that whole layer, because that's not the correct colours, what I started to do was change it by adding layers that all do different things. Using layers for different purposes does get complicated. I'm not going to cover that all now. But what I am going to say is that you can affect and you can change things with using different layers. So I went from blue. I then brought in this yellow glow in the background. And then I really turned the colours up, and I went into this really deep orange red colour, which is, I love it. It really is. But it's very overpowering. So the background is too overpowering for what's in the foreground. So then I just start toning things down and bringing in some more details. And the more you add to it, the more layers I'm putting on. I don't even remember if I had that layer on. We'll put it on. And the more layers that come on and the more colours that I'm adding, and they do all do different things. But as the picture gets built up, you'll start to see that you can see what I was doing. And this is how I did it. I always start, when colouring, I start in my background and I move forward. It's just the way that I do it. Even if I'm colouring traditionally with inks or markers or whatever I'm doing, that's just how I work. I work background to foreground. So as you can see, now I'm adding all of my layers on. That should be on. It's changing, and that's because I make sure that I work in layers so that I can keep building on top of what I originally have there. Yeah, we'll put that one on. And there you can see. Don't know if I like that one or that one. I'll go with that one. So you can see now that that is how I went from either a blank page or even having the sky a completely different colour. I'd started from having what would have been a bluish. It did look wintry. I did like those colours. And what I decided to myself was I'm just going to take those colours and I'll use them in the winter one, because I changed this one to autumn. But that's what layers are. So quite simply, when you hear people talking about how many layers can you get, how many layers are you using, that's what they're talking about. And I am a nightmare because I use far too many layers for everything. So what I thought we would do, if we go here, I thought I'd do some colouring using my iPad, and I'm using PROCREATE, which is an app that you can get. It's this one here. Everybody on the newer tablets can get this. So if you're 100%, I know you can get this on Apple. So if you're on an iPad, you can definitely get it. And I don't know if you can get that on other brands. I'm sure you can, but I don't want to tell you that you can and then find out that you can't. So that's what I use anyway. So we're in the app now, and this is a drawing, and I've just spotted a mistake. Oh look, I see, this is exactly what I mean. That may have found its way into the book because I didn't see that till now. So I am going to, there it is. So I found the mistake, it's there. So now I can go in and just get rid of that, and it's gone. And I haven't lost anything else on the page. Whereas if I'd layered them all down and it had all been merged down to one page, I would have to make sure that I don't affect any of the lines around it, which is fine for a little thing like that. But sometimes, especially at night, when I'm using my fingers and I'm closing or I'm opening or I'm doing something, I find that I've accidentally, before I shut down the iPad, I've accidentally done something. I've drawn a whole line across my page and I've turned it off and I haven't realised. So once the iPad's turned off and the program's closed, I don't have a back button anymore. So then I have to sit there and try and make sure that I can erase all the bits needed, which is why I always work in different layers. So this is from the original drawing. I haven't prepped this for colouring at all. So I don't need all these layers. I've got this the original file elsewhere. So because I know I use loads of layers, also, just to let you know, I have ducks. They are outside and they've decided to be really noisy. I don't know why. maybe they're not getting enough attention, but they've decided to start quacking really loud. So yes, it's normal, we have ducks. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do, I need that layer, I need that layer, I need that one. I don't need that one. So I'm going to merge my layers that I need, and I'm going to get rid of all the layers that I don't. So if you use Procreate and you want to merge your layers, I don't know how you do it or how often you do it. This is how I merge my layers. I get the top one and the bottom one, and then I pull them down and then delete. Now I want all of these, so my finger will be on the top layer, the bottom layer, and I'm literally just going to pinch them together. So now everything is on that one layer. So once you've got whatever it is that you want to colour, if you bought from Etsy, for example, you download the file, move it over into Procreate, it should look something like this. There's lots and lots and lots of different functions on Procreate that you can use, and there is no way I'd be able to go through all of them with you right now. It'd be too much information, it'd be like an overload. What I am doing, I'm just starting to do mini tutorials over on my TikTok page. So I'm going to be doing absolutely loads of things on Procreate, so you can see, and I can explain in small sections quite fast for you to remember, of what we do with layers, how do we merge them, and all the different things that you can do on Procreate. So you can see on my page at the moment there is this kind of crosshair in the middle. It's because it's been split into 4 sections. That's actually because I was drawing my diamond last time I had this, and I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted it to be split into 4 equal quadrants. So I had used the drawing guide, which is here. So actually, if I turn that off, I can explain to you what the drawing guide does. We'll go back here. So when you've got a blank page such as this, if you need a drawing guide for any reason, you can move over into the settings where I just did, come down to drawing guides, and each one does an individual thing. So this is it. You can change the size, grid size, up and down here. Lots of people use this for writing or for calligraphy or letter practice. Or even just for the fact that you really need some straight lines. So if I put assisted drawing on, it's going to make my layer assisted here. Let's go for quite a bright colour. And we'll go to, this is the pen that I always use. So now this layer is assisted. Doesn't matter what I do, I'm only going to be able to create perfect straight lines. Which of course is brilliant if you want perfect straight lines. If you want to adjust your lines, so you want perfectly straight lines but on a different angle, you can draw your line, keep your pen held down, and then as you can see, you can swing your line round. So if you're looking at putting something at a perspective, you can move your lines even though they're perfectly straight, but they can still be moved. So that is, it's clear, the assisted drawing for that guide. The second is this one, and this one is because you'll be drawing the diagonal lines. So that's exactly what that one does, drawing your diagonal lines that way. Let's get rid of that one. Perspective, this one's a lot harder. I'm not even going to do this one. This one is for creating vanishing points when you're thinking about landscapes. So it's all about foreshortening and how to make things smaller in the background, larger in the foreground. That's quite a difficult one to get your head around. But this one would actually be quite helpful to a lot of people, especially those, if you like to colour mandalas, you can make your own, and it's really easy. So I've gone to my Symmetry here in the drawing guides, go to options, and I am going to make them smaller. So I've gone to radial now. Obviously, I'm making all these quadrants from the center point, and they will all run symmetrical. So if I've just zoomed in on my page so you can see a little bit better. Let's go with black. So this is just literally going to be, it's that simple. You can really get into, I mean, they're just so relaxing. get into mandala drawings, and it can be so simple and so easy to do. I mean, years ago I tried to do it, but I was actually using fine liners, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it because my hands are so shaky. Every little tiny movement would drive me absolutely mad. But yeah, you can do absolutely loads and loads and loads of detail in these. And because you can zoom so far in, I mean, you can go right in. But you can create some really, really beautiful mandalas. And that's really simple. All that is going to your drawing guide, edit drawing guide, and into your symmetry and your options. I've turned radial on here, giving you all the quadrants for you to work in, and you can make perfect mandalas. So turn that off. I don't want a drawing guide on, so I'm going to turn that off as well, and I'm going to bring my girl back to the top. So if you have any questions as I'm going along, oh, thank you, Kathy. Procreate is only available on the iPad for now. I was sure that I'd seen it somewhere, but I'm obviously wrong. I think quite a lot of people, when they're on the Android devices, use is it Ibis Paint? I think a lot of them use that instead. Right, okay, I'm back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start colouring this lady in here, this girl in, so you can see how I would do it. If you have any questions as I'm going along, I'll explain, but if you have any questions, let me know. So if you've ever watched me colour anything traditional, you'll know that I do things in steps because my brain's too loud and I need to know what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, when I'm doing it. And actually, it's the exact same process that I do digital, the way that I would do it if I was going to use marker pens. So what I'm going to do, and this is what I always do, I am going to, let's start with the skin. So if you are looking to get some help about how to do skin, I'll cover that one straight away. So everybody has their own favourite brushes, and once they've worked with them, we tend to change them and mess with them. You've got a normal brush. This was a normal, what was you called? Well, it was a studio pen. This is my studio pen too, because I've changed it. So we have so many different settings that you can mess about with and change the way the pen behaves. When I first started, I didn't touch anything. I just left it all because you just don't really understand how it works. But honestly, once you've started putting marks down on the paper or on your iPad, you'll see that you don't like this or you don't like that. And usually within all these settings, you can find a way to fix that. So this is the one I always draw with, Studio Pen 2. Sketching, I always sketch with the 6B pencil, always. And painting, depending on the effect that I'm going for, painting, I go straight in with the round brush. Flat brush is what I use for backgrounds usually, but round brush does almost everything. This is your smudge tool at the top. So this is your painting, your drawing, whatever it is that you're creating. This is your smudge tool. Again, you duplicate everything that you have a paintbrush in. So if I'm painting with the round brush, I want to smudge with the round brush. You don't have to. You can smudge with the flat or the acrylic, but it will all give different effects. So the best thing you can do when getting an iPad or using Procreate is spend so much time literally just messing about. Paint for nothing. You're not even painting anything, but just get some brush strokes down and see what you like. Smudge them up, see if you like them that way or not. Sketch something. The good thing with the new iPads is that your pencil, this is the Apple Pencil 2. I really didn't like this when I got it. I preferred the first one, but now I like this one. It is responsive, so you can touch it and it does different things. But it doesn't work just by the tip. So when you're drawing, if you were holding a normal pencil... Oh, wobbly, sorry. So if I was going to use this normal Prismacolor pencil on anything, if I use the tip, I'd get a sharp line. If I use it on the side, and I used the side of the pencil, I would get a much bigger line, and it would be more along the lines of shading. That is exactly what the Apple Pencil does. So it really is more like drawing traditionally than it ever has been before. So you really can hold the pencil on the side and it will act like a sketch pencil if you've selected the sketch pencil to work with. So I'm going to start off with the round brush, as I've said. So there's all your brushes. There's your smudge. This is your eraser. So you can go in it. Even erasing things creates different textures. So you can use the eraser to create different textures as well. And there's the layers. And this over here is my colours. So this is an entirely different thing by itself. You can either use the colour wheel, which is what I use. I like the colour wheel because if I've created a colour that I like, we're not just looking at colours, we're looking at tones and we're looking at gradient. For example, if I find I want this colour, but I want that shade of that colour, but I really want other colours that will match, I don't touch that. I move the colour wheel around so that when I lay down colours together, they flow through each other. So if I show you what I mean, just turn that off. So I'm going to go to my colour wheel. I've decided I want to go in here. So there's that colour. Now, if I decide I want orange, and I do that, I personally don't think they match. That to me would drive me mad. I want my colours to be along the same level and along the same shades. So I'm going to get rid of that. Go back to here. I'm going to pick up my original colour and go back into here. So if I want an orange, I will move my colour wheel all the way around till I find the shade that I'm looking for and lay them down together. Now those colours match. They would look nice and they would fit in a colouring page. And if I move it around again, I can have that one. Even a bit of purple. They're all along the same shades. They are different colours, but they all have the same value to them, rather than one being bright, one being dark. Or when you go to, I always tell people to do this, when you go to a DIY store and you're looking through paints and you get those strips with all the different paint colours on it, I always pick them up, bring them home, and I make colour palettes with them for my pencils. When I'm on an iPad, I don't need to worry about that because I can lay things down and see if they work. But obviously when we're working with pencils, we can't do that. So although I do it on a scrap piece of paper, it's not exactly the same. When you do that and you get those paint strips, it will say at the top whether they're all warm colours, spring colours, fresh colours, dark colours. And that's what this is doing. It's making sure that all of our colours stay within the same value range. So that's why I use the wheel. You can use the wheel like me, or where they are. This one. A lot of people use this one because it's very similar to different apps. I think it's like Ibis Paint. Do you know what? I'm really bad for knowing other programs. I kind of like what I like and then I stick to it. So with this one, you move the values and the layers here instead of using the colour wheel. Harmony is supposed to help you pick out complementary colours. Now it does work, but at the same time, still give yourself a little bit of judgment. So if I pick that colour and put it here, the complementary colour is selected and it's there. So yeah, I think they go together quite well. So if you do struggle with that and you do struggle with complementary colours, that's actually a good one to have on. I flip between the disc and harmony. This one to me is too much faffing about. I'm sure lots of people do it this way, but I'm a messy artist. I don't have an Instagram beautiful studio. I mean, you can see all the way around my iPad now, there's paint everywhere. Because I can't have anything white, because if it's white, it's going to get covered in paint. It's completely pointless. So to me, this is just way too much. Completely too much. And then you have your palettes. I make the palettes. I don't have many on this iPad because they're all on my old iPad and I've been too lazy to send them over. So warm skin tone, natural skin tone, cool skin tone. I've made these. I think you get these with the iPad. But in general, once you start using the iPad and you're making your own colours up, you'll be able to make your own palettes anyway. I am going to move that one. So that one's now came here for me. So it's close at hand all the time. So let's put our girl back on. When you're doing colouring pages, remember she needs to be at the top. because if she's not at the top, we will colour over our lines. I do colour over the top of the lines, but nowhere near yet. It's ages down the line. So she is at the top, and then we will colour underneath the lines. I quite like that green, actually. I think I'm going to... Let's get rid of that. And then I'm going to pop that colour up there because I like that. The last one that I did, I'm just not on this iPad, otherwise I could have shown you. I'm going to do a completely different colour palette to the last one. It's not on here. The last one was bright pinks and purples and yellows. So this time I hadn't got a colour palette planned, but now I'm going to use that green purely because I've just seen that and I like it. So that green's going to come in somewhere. So let's turn that off, come down here and get that out the way. And let's start with the skin tones. So I'm going to be using the round brush for painting, and again the round brush for smudging. And I'm going to start doing it the same way that I would always do it. So let's grab a... Just take a look. It's a bit warm, that one. So you'll see me, I'm using my hand and my pen. So down here we have the brush size. We have the opacity of the paintbrush. And this here is a colour picker. And this here is either a back or a forward brush. So my cable just dropped in the way, didn't it? Move that cable out of the way. There you go. Right, so yeah, I'll be using my pen, but at the same time, I'll be using my hand over here as well. So let's get a neutral E colour for the skin, and I don't like it. Where did I get these? What made me make these colours? Maybe that one. They all look the same. All right, let's do that one. Okay, right. So all I'm going to do, you can see I told you I wasn't neat. I'm not neat with anything. There, I'm just literally going to fill all the spaces where my skin tone is. And you can obviously see, and I know some people feel really strongly about this, that you don't actually paint or draw when doing it digitally. You can see that clearly you do. I'm using a pencil and I am obviously filling all the spaces in by, you can, I mean, you can do this thing and then drop it in the middle. I just don't really do that because nothing's ever a perfect shape. Now, I know that I'm messy and I know I'm going out of the lines, but I deal with that later. Okay, right. So, let's make sure she's all one level. Okay, right. So that's our base line down. From this point, and you will have seen me do this every single time with pencils, marker pen slightly different, but in my brain they're the same. So I've got my base shade down now. The next one I move on to is shadow. So it's really easy. You're not looking for a million different pencils. We've got our shape. Now all I'm going to do is keep the value of the colours the same. I'm just going to make it slightly darker. So all I'm going to do is drag it down until I find a colour I think would work well for a shadow. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. So I've picked my shadow colour. I've gone into my layers. And this is my base layer. We never work on the same layer. So I'm now going to move up to the next layer. But if I clean this up now, so you can see, we literally do have to go all the way around the outside of our lines, cleaning up that huge mess that I just made. But it doesn't take very long. All I'm doing is literally, I am going to make a note of that colour. Come back down because I need to pick this one up. So all I'm doing is erasing all the lines that I went around. It doesn't really matter about the top because I'm going to go over the top, and really it didn't really matter about the hair because I would be layering the hair on top and then you wouldn't see it anyway. But purely so you can see how some of these features work. That'll do. Apart from that bit there. That's the other problem. I'm also heavy-handed, as you can see. Right, that'll do. Okay, so now that I want to add another layer, because now I'm going to add the shadows in, I am going to move up to the next layer, and I have got a new colour, which is that one there, which I can pick up again. But I don't want to have to, if I clean this whole thing up, and I don't want to go out of the lines all over again, because if I do this, it's going to go everywhere. What I do to make sure that I'm not constantly cleaning myself up, I select my layer, select again, and I'm going to alpha lock that into position. So now that I am on the above layer, nothing happens unless I'm on the area I want it to work. So I can't go off, I can't get things all over the place. It will now only work on top of the skin because that's what I selected. So to do that, just to remind you again, I selected the area and then I alpha locked it into position. And now I can work above that layer and I won't go outside of the lines. So with everything, when we're looking at shadowing, it's exactly the same again that I would do if I was using pencils or markers. So this iPad's going to fall again. I'm going around the outside of my shapes. I'm still thinking about the way it would look on a face naturally. And we have to go around the objects as well. So I'll put that there for now. Eye socket. So as I said to you, you can move the Apple pencils and they do different things. So I'm holding it slightly different because I want it to cover a larger area. So there is quite a simple shadow. And actually, now that you've seen how we do it, I'm going to erase that because I've had a better idea. So let's clear that completely. If you'd notice, this face is actually symmetrical. The hands and all the other details are not symmetrical, but her face is. And I should have remembered that. So if I go to drawing guide and I bring my drawing guide up and I go back into symmetrical and I'm going to go vertical, I now have to zoom in and set that up properly. So if you can see, I'm bringing the vertical line in so it's precisely down the middle, and you can see it's down the middle there. Obviously the hands are not going to be symmetrical, the whole thing isn't, but I do remember her face was symmetrical. So now that I've added that in, I can now have that on assisted. I need to select my layer again, move above, and now everything that I do on this side will now appear on the other side, which is perfect if you want to have something symmetrical. You want the shading on both sides of the face to be the same. So we can add that. And all that does is either, when it helps us, it makes things go faster. And I'm going to go around doing the same thing that I would do. Obviously, you'd do it one side then the other, but we don't have to do that, because I just remembered I'd drawn it symmetrical. So I'm going to go around all of my shapes into the socket of the eyes. And if you can see, I'm using a paintbrush, but of course it still has, this is the same one, but it has different levels to it. So an Apple pencil, sorry, allows you to change the pressure, which then changes the opacity. So you can achieve all sorts of different effects depending on how you use the pencil. So I am going to join these lines here and then blend out slightly, because we don't want it all to be one shade. And then come underneath. And this type of drawing that I'm doing is exactly what I would do if I was using pencils. Although, of course, you can be a little bit more, well, you can be a lot more experimental, because if it goes wrong, you can just erase it. But you can also be a bit looser, again, because you've got the back button, and, you know, you don't have to stick with your decisions when you're doing it digital. If you really hate it, you can, of course, just erase it, isolate it, erase it, and then start again. Whereas once you've committed, when you're doing it by pencil, we don't tend to be as brave. I do, and then I get rather annoyed that I've had to throw away like 5 different versions because I got bored, or I really liked that colour, and then 10 seconds later I decided I really don't like that colour, but it's a bit late. So I think I am going to, right, that's going to be the first layer, although we do have to really do these, otherwise they'll look stuck to her forehead. Can everybody see this well enough? If I use too many lights, you see, it'll end up making, they'll just bounce off the screen. I'm not sure if that's helpful. It's not, is it? No, I won't worry about lights. Yeah, bouncing off the screen. Okay, right, so there's our first layer. Now we have to blend it. So when I'm working with markers, pencils, or on here, I have to have perfect blends. It drives me mad if I haven't got it perfect. So I'm using my smudge tool here, and I'm going to use the round brush. So I'm going to actually show you, I'm going to duplicate that and turn one off so I can show you and not commit to it. So the smudge tool, the biggest thing to remember when you're using this is that you do not want it fully up in this bottom corner. You don't want the pressure or the opacity to be up to max, because if it is, it just does that. That's not smudging. That's like just moving the whole thing. So we'll get rid of that. You want it down really, really low, so you have so much more control over where you smudge things. So that's too much for me. That was 34%. Whoa, that's way too much. See how things move too much. Get rid of that. Come down again. I think I want maybe 20. I can live with 20. I feel like I need to go lower. Might go 15. See, this is my problem. Right, I'm going to go 18. All right, I can live with 18. Right. So you can, of course, smudge and blend it quite easily on an iPad like that. But I personally don't like that method at all. I think that looks like colours have layered, they've not blended together. I've just blended a colour on top of the other colour. Whereas what you can do with an iPad is actually make your colours blend together and they actually react like they are paint. This is different because this is a paintbrush and I'm not using a watercolour. If I was using a watercolour, let's turn that off. and go here for a minute. Right, so if I pick up a watercolor brush, where are you? Sorry, I've got to find one. There. Right, so that's how my watercolor, and you can see the way it behaves, and you can see that they don't all look the same, and you can create some really nice like effects with them. And then if I want to go over the top and go dark, I can. But if I had two different colors, and I'm going to go completely different, let's go green. It's an awful green. Let's go there. So one of my watercolors is on one layer, the other one is on the next, and I do that. And then I decide to blend them together. Well, if I've got my layers isolated differently, so my brown's on the bottom, my green's on the top, technically, all I'm doing is smudging the top layer, which you can see. It is not blending with that bottom layer at all, which is why I don't blend on separate layers. I hate that. It hasn't reacted, it hasn't changed the colours in any way. So if we go back, and now I merge my layers down and then I blend, you can actually see they are affecting each other. I am bringing that, and you can see the opacity change as it comes further out from the center. They are now affecting each other, which is how traditional watercolors would obviously behave. So when it comes to blending, you can go now. I like to merge my layers first and then blend. So we can get rid of you, turn you on, come up to here, go back to my paint brushes. And let's get that colour again before I end up painting a green. Right, so now I've blended them. No, sorry, I've painted them on. I'm going to move them down. So now they're sharing the layer, and I'm going to blend them together. It's still on alpha lock, so everything around it won't be affected. So nothing's going to go on around here because it's not needed. And I am going to go in. I'll put my drawing assist on because obviously it's symmetrical. And I'm going to go in now and I'm going to blend them together, and you'll see what I mean. So instead of having the upper layer blended, I'm going to have them blended together. Which is why I always merge my layers when I'm blending. So you definitely get the idea that these colours are being blended together. It changes the way that the colours react, and you really can see it. Because I've done that now, I could pick up different colours from here to here rather than having the one kind of faded in and out above it. What is that line? So I'm going to blend all the way down. So depending on how into blending you are, really just depends on how long you spend doing anything. This is just the first layer, so this layer would go down quite quickly, and I can blend this one out quite fast. For any one portrait in particular, I may have blended maybe 15 layers. And then we've got to think about, once you've blended the skin tone of a character, and she is a standalone kind of painting, once you've done that and then you place her into an atmosphere, you place her into a situation, you place her into a background. For example, this girl, if that wasn't we leave this blank. This is like the sphere thing. So we leave that completely blank. This is going to be her skin tone now. But what happens when this glows? How does this affect everything else? So you have all the layers that you need to do to create the person. And then on top of that, we have the atmosphere. So she isn't in front of an atmosphere, she's in it. So if this glows, she needs to glow. If this glows pink, we need to think about where would the pink highlights affect her face, her hair, her headscarf, the background. And that's when you end up working in 20, 30, 40 layers, because every time you think I've done it, you'll realise that actually, no, because that's glowing now, we need to add highlights, even maybe into her eyelashes, into the corners of her eyes. You need to, these things come with experience, and they come with practice. When I first started drawing digitally, I only drew. And you know what? It was shocking. I had to buy a really old, they're not old, some people still use them, I just don't know how they do it. Wacom tablets. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of them. So you had your laptop or your computer, and you literally had, it's no screen, it was just like a black, flat thing. And you drew on it and it appeared on your laptop screen. So you had this huge disjoint problem between your hand and the screen. So you're trying to draw, but you're looking at a screen that's higher and you're working. I just couldn't do it. It felt like drawing in a mirror. That's how that felt. So I did it. And I did illustrating for a couple of children's books that way. But I liked it when I first started because I was like, God, this is amazing. It's completely new. And then after a while, you're like, what am I doing? Thankfully, Apple fixed that problem. Because if Apple hadn't fixed that problem, I don't know whether or not, well, I'd probably still be doing it because it's my job, but I don't think I would be enjoying it as much as I do enjoy it now. Because now I just absolutely love drawing and painting digitally. It is definitely one of my favourite pastimes, which is good for me considering it's supposed to be my job. So I always tell my kids to make sure if you're going to get a career, get one that you enjoy, because you'll be doing it for a long time. Okay, so there. Let me do the hands. We might as well as we're here. Let's select that again. Oh no, we're on the same layer. I'm going to add the hands on the upper layer and then come down. Just bring it down. I do that just to make sure that I don't make any mistakes, and it doesn't, it's not really a problem if you go a little bit wrong. You can just fix it. This isn't on drawing assist, as you would see. So here's my assisted layer, there's my assisted layer. This is not, because this part of the painting is not symmetrical, so it wouldn't work. So I'm just doing this really loose, just to get some perspective on it a little bit, really. And do the same this side. But all these things need to be considered. At the moment, I can just do this and my brain will tell me where the shadows need to be, where the highlights need to be, and that's fine until you put her in her environment. And then we have to let the environment change all of those things. But that's not for a while yet, so we're okay. Don't need to worry about that bit yet. So does anybody have any questions? Is there anything anybody would like to know so far about what I've done? Or do you know what I've just done? I've just told you I'm doing what I don't ever do. I forgot to merge my layers, didn't I? So I'm going to merge my layers down, and now I'm going to blend them. There you go. That's why it works. So yeah, if anybody has any questions about anything that I'm doing, or even if you're trying to do something and you can't see why it's not working, we might be able to work out a way of you being able to do whatever it is that you need to do. So all I'm going to do is just run around, get this blended in a little bit. It's just so we have a bit of a base, that's all. Otherwise it'll look a little bit odd if the face is all blended but nothing else is. Right, okay, that'll do. So now we've got that shade down. I'm not going to put you through me shading a million different layers. I won't do that to you. But this is not dark enough. So I am going to do another shadow layer. So I've added a new layer. I'm going to go back up here into my colour wheel, and then I'm going to come down darker, about there. So I'm going to select the area that I want to be colouring and move up a layer. Again, the reason why I do this is to make sure that I only draw onto the areas that I want. This works amazingly if there's more than one thing on the page. If I have, you know, if a hair was done, then I don't want to go wrong and affect other areas. So I'm only going to affect the area that I've selected. And what I'm going to do is basically just repeat. Let's put drawing assist on. Repeat what I've just done, but with a darker colour, so that we can get some more depth. Right, okay, so let's go in and go a bit darker. So it's the same as if you are doing it with your marker pens or your pencils. How are you going to do it? It's the exact same thing. Shadows go in around the side of the face. Shadows go in from, I always take it from this part of the nose right the way up to the eyebrows. And I do this with pencils, so you'll see me do it the same, although maybe not in as many layers. And I want it to go into the socket. I've already came down here. All I'm going to do is I'm just dragging it out a little bit so the line isn't as hard. It won't be hard anyway because we're going to blend it. So across the shoulders, like that. I will do the hands after. So we'll do the hand bit after. I'm going to add, I like that little chin thing going on there. And then underneath the nose, into the lips, and then actually on the nose. So that we're creating a shape. And again there. And then let's just touch up, go a little bit darker again, just touch up around here. There you go. Okay. So there's our second layer. So I'm going to drop, let's turn the drawing assist off and let's do the hands before I drop it down. Then it's all done together. So I'm going to put the shadow in all the same places that we've just done. Now we're just going to work with it slightly darker. Coming in, going around all the places where you think there'd be a shadow. Obviously between the fingers. We need to build up shapes as well. So I'm thinking about the shapes of your fingers. So we're not going to have a flat image. We want them to look 3D. Even if they don't have to look massively realistically 3D, it does help with the overall effect. And coming in all the way around. Done. Okay. So let's drop this layer down. I'm going to turn drawing assist on just for the face because that's symmetrical. Get my round brush ready and we are going to go back in and we're going to blend again. And what I do when I'm blending, if I go in, I am bringing the darkest line outward And what I'm doing is I'm doing it according to the shape of the face. So I'm going to bring this one in because we're going to be moving around all the way around her face like that. Change that a bit more carefully at the bottom, and then back up again. There you go, and just blending it out. I actually need more there, and then go again. So you can add, if you have to add because you feel like you've blended the colour out too far, just go back in and add it in again. And it definitely helps for you to pull back. As with anything that you're doing, whether it's traditional or not, you need to pull back and you need to have a look from a distance. So I can see I'm not happy. This side doesn't really bother me, but it must be the same because it's symmetrical. I'm not happy with that there. I'm not sure what's going on. So I'm going to go in and then smooth that back out. Yeah, much better. So I'm going to do the same round here. And then drag it down a little bit. Obviously, what isn't symmetrical is this flower compared to this side. I'm going to deal with that entirely at the end. So we don't need to worry about that for now. It does affect the eyebrow though, which I will change when it comes to that point at the end. So let's bring it around the eye. And I'm going to make it smaller so we can do the bridge of the nose. Because as much as I want there to be a line so you can see the shape, I don't want it to be too hard. Okay, so I'm happy with that there. Maybe blend this out a little bit more. Bring it down and then we can bring it out because that's how the shape of the face should look. Bring it outward, there you go. Let's do this bit. So because there is no, you have this shape to work with, so I've hinted at the shape of the nose, but you don't have to do it the way that I've done it. Depending on how you shadow it, depends on how the nose will look. So I'm going to maybe make like the button part at the end of your nose, maybe make it a little bit smaller. And bring it up. And just blend these bits out a little bit more. So you can see the shape of the nose, you can change that. And then bring it down. And then we need to do these bits around here still. And I actually think we can maybe make that a little bit darker. And then blend a little bit more. There you go. That's much better. So I'm thinking about the chin. So I'm thinking this is the part of the chin that would be the lightest. So I'm literally going to add that shape. And I can drag this up and around that shape the way it should be. And then once we've got those areas placed, we can blend our shadow out. So when we put the highlight on there, it will have created a new shape. And then just start blending everything else out. So I'm still on drawing assist at the minute, because this part here is also symmetrical. I love being able to do that, but obviously not everybody's face is symmetrical, so it's very rare that you actually get away with being able to draw like that. This one, because it was a direct face onto us, even though not all of the elements are symmetrical, but it still works in a sense that the face can be. Oh, stop. Right, there's that bit. I need to turn drawing assist off. So you can see now why I always have so many layers, because I go wrong like a million times. So I've turned drawing assist off, and now I can blend this out better. And I'm going to keep a lot of this dark actually, because although the globe would shine, I'm aware that we're never going to get this done in the time period either. But because the globe would shine, I will change the atmosphere after. At the moment, when you hold something, all this area of your hand is going to be the darkest. So I'm going to stick with that. I mean, when we add the highlights, it obviously helps to make your shadows look darker anyway. And highlights is another layer that we will get to. So just keep on going. Yep, so yeah, it's one of those processes that takes quite a long time. You just have to keep on going and just blending everything out. The more layers that you create, the more three-dimensional things look. Even when drawing cartoons, you can tell the difference between an illustration that was deliberately made to look 3D or a flat lay, for example. Oh God, one of my daughter loves, is it like, I'm going to get it completely wrong. There's like a Phineas and Ferb. I know there's that. I mean, I know that's not the one she likes, but I'm pretty sure they're completely flat lay. Some of the Scooby-Doos over the years, you can tell as they got better. They started off really flat lay, and then they got better and they got into more 3D. And then for some strange reason, we went backward. I'm not entirely sure why they did that. I suppose it's also the difference between, say, Frozen, the way that that one was illustrated. That one has so many elements, not just in the fact that it's illustrated, in the paintings themselves. They've done so many things to improve that in comparison to Snow White, whereas Snow White, being the first ever feature animation film, was an amazing film in the very beginning. Personally, I'm not a fan of that one, but you can definitely see the difference between the drawing styles of Snow White and then, of course, Frozen. Many years to advance on that, obviously. But if you take it into account the fact that they've stopped drawing flat lay and they've realised that they're going to start bringing in different elements to improve things. So there's the second shadow layer, and I think we're going to leave it at that. And then we're going to start bringing some different colours in. So this is why it ends up taking quite a long time to build up a character doing it this way. So I noticed there's that there that needs to be blended. There and there. There you go. So what I'm going to bring in now is some colour. So what I mean by that is we need some, like a blush style, warm colours need to be brought in. Sorry, I always forget, I just remembered that bit as well. So just blending these bits in here. And I think, to be fair, I think those shadows are probably a little bit too big, but it doesn't really matter for now. Okay, so when we're picking a colour that is too big for me, that's going to annoy me. when we're picking a colour to be able to match the colour scheme and the skin tone palette that we've created, what we're going to do is go back into where our shadow is. And this is when I use the colour wheel. So I'm going to use the colour wheel to be able to change that to match the next colours that I'm looking for. So if I wanted a more orange skin tone colour, some yellows adding in, whatever it is that I needed, I can add them, even blue. So if, for example, this orb was going to be blue, we could bring some blue into it. And what I'm going to bring into it is, I don't like to create blush out of pink. I really don't like it. So I don't mind this area pink, but I don't like this area pink. So I'm going to go here. So I'm going to start off with the value I already had. So the value hasn't changed. I will be changing it as we add more blush, but for now I'm going to stick there, and this is the colour I'm going to be using. It's there. So I'm on my layer above. I'm going to turn on my drawing assist. Same brush. Make it bigger, but I'm going to turn my opacity down a little bit because I don't want it in your face. And I'm going to start adding the colour. It's not going to be just a blush. We want it to warm up the skin tone altogether. And with this one, I'm just blending it out so I can see how it affects the skin tone, to see whether or not I really like it or not. Oh, I don't know, I can't tell. Let's clear it and we'll go again. So that's cleared. Let's go in and place it just. So that's the actual colour. It's actually a really nice colour. And let's just drag it out a little bit. Because what I always do when I'm using these layers of colours, it'll be this colour that I use on her lips. So I'm going to put that there so I don't forget about it. Let's drop that down. And let's just see what happens. So we're going to blend that one out. So I'm going to blend it up and around as well. Put drawing assist on. And let's blend this around. Let's bring this, make it a little bit bigger, and bring this down. And if it's too much, we just lift it off again. And then we can just pull it back. It doesn't have to be as strong as it's looking. We can pull it back. Like that. And what I think we need, we generally need to lift. We need it to be a bit warmer. Let's go there. So I'm on another layer. I've gone above again and I'm going to use it. Let me select this layer. And I'm going to change the skin tone slightly because I think it's too yellow. I'm going to make it warmer. And I'm going to pull this across the face completely and right the way across the skin tone. So we're not getting that, there's kind of like a yellowy colour in there that I'm not really feeling. So we are bringing that to a slightly different skin tone colour there. So if I turn that on and off, you'll be able to see. So that's quite yellow. Turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. This one looks quite good because it's got highlights to it. This one doesn't have any highlights yet, but I like the warmth of this one, so we're going to stick with this one. I am going to drop that down. And then until we do any further highlights, we should maybe just add some of this colour in. And I'm not selected. Select. So that we can shadow on your body, whether you've got a shadow there or not, is not just one colour. It's obviously going to be a whole load of different colours. So all I'm doing is trying to drag similar colours across the skin tone all together. So even if you're putting blush on her face, you still need to find other places to put that. That should be appearing on other parts of her skin. It should not just be on her cheeks. It needs to be spread out so it affects the whole skin tone. Sorry, I'm just looking on Facebook to see if anybody's joining. Okay, so now we've added, we've changed the skin tone slightly. So we've added a warmer layer to it, and you can see it. You can see the difference there and there. So all I'm going to do is drop that down and blend that. And there's my smudging tool or blend tool. So all I'm doing is blending that all out. Are we on? We're on drawing assist. You have to keep remembering these things. Turning it on, turning it off, turning it on, turning it off. I'm not the best at that, which is why I work in so many layers. Before I learned about layers, when I was first drawing and I was using that Wacom tablet, I didn't know really the point of layers. So I never really bothered with them. I was like, well, why are they using layers? I can draw it all in one go. Because I was coming from literally using a pencil and a piece of paper to drawing on this black, thin, I can't explain it. It's like an iPad, 100 times thinner, and you can't look at it. It's just a black slate piece of plastic, and you're drawing on it with this scratchy pen. The pen was so scratchy, and like you'd wear the ends down. You had to buy replacement ends. And I've done paintings and stuff on that years ago, but you just never, I never felt the joy of using it. Whereas I can't help it. I'm not, honestly, Apple doesn't pay me any money. I am not saying this because they're giving me any money. I love Apple. This is my new iPad. I have my old iPad, which I still use. I'm using them both right now. I have my Apple Mac. I have my iPhone. I have the Apple TV. I don't know how anybody copes without Apple. I really don't. Everything. I've got my Apple Watch. Everything always fits together. It's perfect. And that's exactly what you need when you're illustrating. It is. It's what you need. You need to be able to close one thing and open another and it be there. You need all these things to merge together. So if you do want to get an iPad, go ahead. But I swear I'm not paid by them. I just love them. Okay, so I'm going to bring up just a little bit of that colour because it's not really showing enough on the forehead for me. So let's bring that up, merge that around a little bit. And there you go. So let's get rid of that on her lips because it looks weird. I'm going to leave, where can I put it? Turn that off. And I'm going to drop that colour there. So I've got a track of that for later. Turn my alpha lock back on so I don't forget. And let's get rid of that off her lips. God, that does look weird now, doesn't it? Let's put that back then. No. There you go. So alpha lock back on. And drop them all down together. So the next thing that we definitely need to do now is start working toward the highlights. So at the minute, she's got no definition on any of the areas that are supposed to point forward on her face. My brain isn't working particularly well at the moment. I don't know why, but I keep forgetting all my words. So when we're talking about shadow and highlights on a face, shadows are the parts that sit back. So in your eye sockets, around the sides of your nose, your ears, around the hairline, they're all going to be shadowed because they're sitting back on your face. The things that sit forward are the things that give your face definition, such as your nose, the tip of your nose. So those are the areas that we need to add the highlights. So again, because we want all of our colours to be in the same range, I wouldn't, for example, just go, I like that one, that's a nice highlight, and let's do that. That actually is a bad example because that's quite a good matching colour. But let's change it. That does not match. Yes, it's a lighter colour, but it doesn't match because it doesn't match the values that we've already been using. We need to get a highlight colour that matches the values. So how we do that, let's get rid of that. Let's go back to our base colour. Now, what PROCREATE does, it keeps a history of all of the colours that we've used. That was the green that I used, so that must be my base colour. But to be perfectly honest, I change things so often, and we've added red. Well, it's not red. We've added this warm colour over the top, so that's no longer our base colour. So I'm going to pick it up. So I've got my paintbrush. This button here, get off my screen. There. So it's over here. You can see it. That one there. That picks up colours. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to pick up the most base colour I can think of. This has clearly got blush in it. This is clearly shadow. That's the same. So either here or here is going to be the most base of my colour. So let's just go there. So now we've got the base back, we need to add the highlights. So whereas before I was dragging this down to create the shadows, I'm going to drag this upward. So I'm going to go there. And we can test that. I'm on a second layer. Let's drawing assist done. Bring that down. And there you go. So that is a good highlight colour. We may want to go lighter, but we don't have to go lighter yet. So we're going to stick with that one. So let's get rid of that. And this is the colour we're going to stick with for now. So I'm going to instantly go on the places where we all know. And what is that line? See, I've just seen a line, this one here, I'm not happy with. There you go. It's like it didn't blend out. And this is why it takes me hours. Because I'm like, what's that? Why is that there? Why did that do that? Come on. All right, I'll leave it alone. Let's go back. Okay, right, so I'm going to add the highlight to the places which is the easiest to think of. So we're going to add the highlight to the nose. Now, depending on how we add that highlight, depends on the shape of the nose that we want to create. So if I go here and go smaller, and I go down here, around there, and maybe bring it off a little bit. That's the shape I'm going to create. And then we have to do, although we have shadow here, remember that we have, I don't know what it's called, where the skin underneath your nose, you see, what's it called? Like, oh, I don't remember. They call it like a something bow here. Makeup people talk about it a lot, but my brain's gone completely blank. Cupid's bow, that's it. So it goes there. Chin. And don't worry about the fact it's really defined. I know it's really defined. We're going to blend that out. Obviously, straight up the nose here. And then out. I'm doing it this way on this girl because this is the shape of her face. You can kind of follow this every single time. But just remember, you change it depending on the type of face that you have. Obviously, if this wasn't here, I'd be blending it right out. But that's now going to affect the way that we put colour down. Highlight in the eye, underneath the eyebrow, and then I try to go right in the centre somewhere here, so I can blend that out either way, but it's not too bright. Where else can we go? Let's bring that one out a little bit more. Bring that down a little bit more. Let's bring that out. Maybe put a little bit here. And see how that looks once we've shaded it out. So when we're working down here, I'm going to go on the collarbone and on the edges here of her shoulders, because they're not really covered, but they're not, you know, massively exposed. And do the same along the edge of her ear. Okay, so I am actually going to blend this without dropping it down first, purely because I'm slightly unsure myself about whether I'm happy with it. So I'm going to blend it out and let's just see whether or not we really like it. So I do have drawing assist on. So it's doing it on both sides of the face for me because obviously the face was symmetrical. And then bring it down. And if you find that you really want to cut in, if you want those highlights to be really tight and pristine, bring your smudge tool to the very edge. So there's my highlights. It can become a bit blurry. You don't need to erase it. I'm going to bring in, so you can see the blur here. Bring my smudge tool in right up to the edge and then we can cut that right in again. So you can see how I created that sharp line. So just mess about a little bit. Just blend things around and see how it goes and see what you like and what you don't like, and just kind of go from there, because obviously you can erase things, you can go again, you can change things, you can change the colour. The best thing with digital art in any way, shape or form is just how experimental you can be. It's really a shame if you don't take that opportunity to be completely experimental. You're not going to go wrong. Well, you are, but if you go wrong, who cares? Just push the back button. I mean, I understand people playing it safe when they're using papers and paints, especially if you've been spending God knows how long on a canvas and you mess up right at the end. Although, to be fair, with acrylic paint, you just paint over the top. But I can understand playing it safe when it comes to things like that. But with digital, you really do not have to be safe. I actually love acrylic paint pouring. I don't know if anybody's seen that. I love it because it's just making the biggest mess in the world, and that's what I do with everything. I used to bake cakes and decorate them. So, you know, big birthday cakes, big wedding cakes. And my husband absolutely hated when I had that job, because he said I could never do anything tidy, and basically the entire kitchen is covered in flour within like 0.5 seconds of me doing anything, which was completely true. But I don't work clean. I can't be tidy when I'm working. It just doesn't work like that. So I'm just going to get rid of that a little bit. There you go. So let's blend these eyes out. Pull it outward. And then bring it down. This area here, we're just going to kind of buff it out. We don't want any hard lines. Let's just buff that away. So it's still light in the skin there, but it's not too overpowering. And then let's take this one, maybe up a little bit, up and around the inside, like she's got a little bit of makeup on. Now, one thing that I actually never do is I never add makeup to any of the girls. I would have thought you'd have noticed in any of the paintings I've done, I always keep natural skin colours. I never add, they have big eyelashes, but I never add like eyeshadow. And I've seen a couple over the last few days. I think it was a couple of people in my colouring team that did it, and it looked really, really good. So I had told myself that next time I'm going to add some colour. I am going to add what looks like makeup to my portraits, because I've never done it before. I don't know why. I just hadn't. Does digital colouring still feel like colouring? Yes, it does. I think Bev, I think you missed the beginning of the live stream. Yeah, I was showing all the way that paint reacts on the screen. It obviously isn't exactly the same, but they've simulated the way that paint can react. Using watercolours and then mixing them, it actually kind of creates that effect on the canvas. And it's not like, there are some of those apps that people do enjoy, and I'd never take it away from anybody, whatever makes you happy. Some people really enjoy the touch to fill. So everything's kind of already there, and they pick up a colour and then they drop it. So let me just quickly, that is a weird shape. Let's go here. Right, so if you're doing a touch to fill colouring book, it will have the shapes already done for you, and you would just pick the colour up and you would drop it like that. That's not what I do, and it's not actually what most digital artists do. This is what they do. Everything involves an Apple Pencil or a stylus if you're on a different brand, and it all means actually sitting and colouring in every little bit yourself. There is no drop to fill. I mean, we started off obviously with a completely white page. This is where we started, and this layer, I think, was we layer 4? I think this was 4 layers. This is going to be our 5th layer. So yeah, we're constantly drawing on top of another, the same way that I would do if I was doing it with pens or pencils, because I like both. I do both. I would never want to say that any one of them is easier than the other, because I don't believe they are. I think they're all just completely different in themselves, and it takes a whole new skill set to learn one from the other. But again, it's something that everybody can learn if it's something that you really wanted to do. I personally think it gives as much pleasure, sometimes, if not more, because you can be so much more experimental. Because, of course, I would be really nervous doing this now if I'd used marker pens and I was putting a highlighter over the top, because if it goes completely wrong, I would be very annoyed. Whereas with it being digital, if it goes wrong, I just push the back button. And I'm not going to lie, I love the back button because I go wrong so many times. So no, I think the enjoyment level is just the same. I honestly do. You don't have to do the touch to fill or the tap to fill or whatever it's called. That I don't know about. I personally don't know if I get any joy from that myself. But at the same time, everyone's completely different, and there's many reasons why people do things that they do. Some people with disabilities can't use pencils. An Apple Pencil is different to a normal one. What I mean is they can't hold many pencils. Maybe they can't sharpen them. Maybe they can't have too much pressure. Maybe it takes too long to get all their equipment out and then they're too tired. Whereas an Apple Pencil takes seconds to pull it out, turn it on, and then you go in. And I think that's what makes doing it this way really accessible to everybody. I know quite a lot of people with disabilities that do it this way, and they get just as much enjoyment from it. I mean, especially if they couldn't actually do it any other way. You know, if they were limited to the point where it was just too much hassle, they are unable to spend so much time getting all their pencils out, getting all their books out. If that's too much for them, and this is what they do, you know, I'm pretty sure that they would be happy that they'd found this way. Art is supposed to be for everybody, and I think that's something that can sometimes get lost. People tend to form opinions, and then they're either on one side of the argument or they're on the other, when I really don't think there needs to be an argument. Lots of people think that digital colouring isn't really colouring, and I think I personally think I've proven already that that's not the case. I mean, we all love Disney. Everyone loves Disney. It's all drawn digitally now. It all came from sketches, but all my work comes from sketches. Most artists that work this way, all their work comes from sketches. So yeah, I just think it's a completely different skill set, completely different type of enjoyment. If it wasn't for this, I probably would never have stuck out colouring books, drawing colouring books, because my particular style of the way that I do things, and because I'm so messy, I could never get my lines clean enough for the publisher. I could never get them the way that I wanted. And eventually, because I know my personality, it would have annoyed me so much I would have given up. Whereas finding the iPad was like the best thing for me ever. It means I can completely draw freehand, but if I go wrong, I can just get rid of it and not stress about it. So there we go. That is the shadow layer, the blush layer, and the highlights. And I actually like that. That has got a lot less layers than I would normally do, but I'm quite happy with that. What I think we should do is do the eyes, do the lips, and see what it feels like in contrast. So I never do white eyes, the white eye part of the eye, because our eyes are not white. I'm going to go in with the highlighter and just lift it a little bit higher. Drop that down. I'm going to go on top. So let's fill this part in, and then we can decide if it needs to go lighter. And I should have done that, shouldn't I, with drawing assist, as I keep telling you, and then I forget. Alright, so there's the white of the eyes. There. Now I actually think that could do with going a little bit lighter anyway. So I'm just going to select that and go over the top with a lighter version. There you go. And I left the colour that I used for the warmth and the blush because I knew I'd want that for the lips. So I'm going to pick that up, go in on a layer above and fill the lips in so that I can add the shadows and the highlights quite easily. So there's my base. And let's turn on Drawing Assist because I keep forgetting. And what I did with the whole face is what I'm going to do now, isolated just to the lips. So I'm going to drag this down to get some shadows and then go in. Let's add some shadow areas where we think it would be. And I'm going to go again. I'm going to make it a little bit warmer. That's better. There you go. And then bring it down. And then come back to that colour, and then I'm going to add the highlights in straight away. And I'm going to blend them all together, and then if we need to add any more, we can add some more. So I'm going to drop this down to the layer. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to alpha lock it, because what I do here, if I go wrong, I don't want it to be on my skin. So now all selected is that small area there to make sure that I don't go wrong anywhere else. And it's a separate layer to my skin, so if I go wrong, I can just delete it. It's not a problem. So I'm in with my blend tool. And let's just blend that out again. So I'm just going to bring the area out on both sides. I will be adding more highlights and probably some more shadow. But let's just see what this looks like first. So because I've got a dark and a light next to each other, what I'm actually doing is I'm working in circles so that I'm blending the colours together, because I don't want a line. So let's bring it down, and then let's blend it out a little bit, and then bring it back in. So there's my highlighted area, and then let's bring this up. And then you need to step back. We need to step back and have a look and see what it is that we've done to see if we need to do anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my darkest colour again. And I'm going, that's not very dark. And I'm adding, may not blend this, because what I'm doing is I'm just adding more definition. And as you can see, I've gone a little bit redder. And just blend that out slightly. Let's go darker again. And then let's bring that round. That's better. And then come back up to where we started. And obviously you can see it's not affecting the rest of the page. Doesn't matter if I go wrong. I don't know how that moth got in. The door's shut. You can tell it's definitely getting warmer here. Doors are open during the day, so now I'm getting flying things and moths and Just as long as it's not mosquitoes like it was last year, I'll be fine. And just add our highlights again. And then I'm going to pull it back and we can have another look. There you go. So I'm happy with that one now. See, there's no highlights on the lipstick. That's kind of like the base of her lips. Once the whole thing's done and at the end, I do go in and I add real shiny highlights. So if she has like a lip gloss on, you'll be able to see it. You can't see it now because now I just want it to be the colour of her lips. So on that there, just on those lips, we used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different shades on her lips. When I'm doing it with pencils or a marker, I'll probably use maybe 4 or 5. So you're still doing some of the same processes that you would do anyway. It's just that this is obviously quicker. So let's have a look of what we've done. I think we should do the eyes, and let me just check on the time. I have no idea what the time is. Oh, there you go. So we've got about 15 minutes left of the live stream. So if anybody has anything they need to ask me, ask away. And let's finish off with the eyes. So I'm going to put drawing assist on and drop that one behind. So our eyes are the same. So there's drawing assist. And I'm going to pick up that green that we had, which is up here. And let's start using that green and then turn it off. So I'm going to have green eyes on this girl here. Our drawing assist on, and as I always do, I'm going to just put the base in first. So our base is this green. And now I need to adjust the tones so that it looks, because I just can't stand flat anything. So this is flat. This is one colour. This is what I would consider to be flat. I'm going to add 4 or 5 different shades now so that we can get some depth. So this is my flat layer. I'm going to go above. I'm going to put drawing assist back on again. And now I'm going to go in the same value. So this is my green here. I'm not going to go off anywhere. I'm going to go up and down from this point. So I'm going to go down quite dark so that I can have, and let's select. And then let's alpha lock and go above so that underneath her lashes I can have quite a nice dark shade on both sides. And now I'm going to come up slightly and do it again, and then up slightly and then again, and keep on going until we get to the highest point, which I always put at the very bottom section. Now these eyes are probably not a very good example of how to do this because it's very tight. She's looking down, so you're not getting a good view of her eyes. So now that I have my colours laid on top, I'm going to drop them down to my base layer. I'm still assisted, so whatever I do to this eye will happen to this eye. So now I am just going to blend these together. And it's very minimal blending. Let's select. Because you can't really see the difference between the colours too much anyway, because they were all the same value. All I did was go up and down, lighter or darker. And the one thing that you'll notice here, so although my eyes are exactly the same, they're not reacting the same because the eyes were not drawn, or the inner eye was not drawn symmetrically, otherwise both eyes would be pointing the wrong way and they're both pointing in. So this highlight here is on the inner part of her eye and this highlight here is on the outer eye. So I have to turn drawing assist off just to finish it, to make sure that everything blends properly. And that's it, and come all the way around. And the last part I always do is fill in these highlights. So there, and there. And the same on the other side. Like that. At the end of the painting, I will be adding highlights which are shiny. So what I mean by that are things like I would go into luminance, use a light pen. Maybe we can pick up some of that green. And you can add you know, shiny highlight parts. But obviously this is too early to be doing things like that, because I was using a green because her eyes were green, but it depends on what colour the orb is, depends on what colour the highlights will be. But these are the type of things that I add at the end, so I can add sparkles in her eyelashes, which most people know that I absolutely love doing. I've generally always got some sparkle somewhere, so we can get sparkles in that, in our eyelashes. We can get let's pick up some of that pink. We can make it look like she's actually got lip gloss on. So you can just add some shiny highlights, so it looks like a lip gloss is shining. She's got a little nose stud. You can make things like that stand out. They're all the little bits we do at the end, and that's probably everybody's favourite bit because it's the fun bit. But we've got to get to that part first. But you can definitely see how it's effective. So with and without, I don't feel like your paintings are finished until you've added all of your final highlights. I think that just finishes everything off. And I love it from that stage there. So let's get rid of you. So that's it for tonight. Thank you to people coming on and having a look and seeing what it is that I'm doing. What I think I'll do is I'll pause this. I won't carry it on. And then this time next week, I will do it again, and we'll have part 2, and then we'll see how far we can get, and I'll just keep on doing it for a couple of weeks until it's finished. What day are we? God, I'm so bad. Is it Wednesday? No, it's Thursday. Maybe if I don't wait a whole week, because if I wait a whole week, I'll probably get bored of doing it. I've got a very short attention span. I will arrange for a part 2, and I'll end this, and then I'll come back in a couple of days and we'll pick it up again. And we can keep on going till the whole thing is finished, so you can see the process from start to end. But thank you everybody for coming on. Thanks for leaving comments. I hope you like her, and I'll see you at the next live stream. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Bye.